Good morning. It is Thursday, November 20th, 2025. And folks, a major shift in our weather pattern is brewing. We have a blast of Arctic air poised to crash into the western United States. And looking ahead to Thanksgiving week, a potential holiday storm system is threatening to snarl travel all across the plains and the eastern U.S. On top of that, we're tracking serious flooding threats, building from Texas all the way to Arkansas. So, let's dive right in. All right. Let's get this started. We'll kick things off by looking at the winds way up there, about 18,000 feet in the atmosphere. Now, this is what we affectionately call the jet stream. You can clearly see a pretty enhanced jet roaring out of Canada right over here along the eastern United States. This is the culprit behind all of that lake effect and lake-enhanced snow blanketing Pennsylvania, and pushing up into the interior Northeast. It's certainly keeping things chilly up there as well, but don't worry, that feature is about to skedaddle. However, what we're really shifting our focus to are these weather systems you see here, which are about to do a little dance across the United States over the next couple of days. Now, these will definitely be impactful, they're going to be interesting, and they'll certainly be something we're all talking about here. But what I'm really going to do is fast forward past these so we can get to the main event and what happens next. Looking at the big picture, the main story that jumps out at me over the next, 2 weeks or so is what's on the menu for Thanksgiving. But first, we will see a little dip in the jet stream right here that's going to stir up some trouble with snow and rain stretching from the plains through the upper Midwest and into the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic regions. And right on its heels, that's going to be followed by a pretty noticeable ridge. And during this time frame, we're talking around Wednesday into Thursday, we could be looking at some potentially record-shattering heat in the southeast and the south-central United States, as this setup right here is going to usher in some seriously intense warmth from the Gulf. But take a look at what's lurking behind it. We've got another big trough. And this, my friends, will be our next potential big-time storm that we'll have to contend with. As it stands now, it looks like there could be a legitimate threat for severe weather from Texas up into Arkansas, but the main story is just going to be an absolute deluge of Gulf moisture over this area, which is a perfect recipe for some flooding. And we'll break that down in more detail here in just a moment. But first, just notice how we have a prolonged jet streak here that's set to trigger recurring thunderstorms across the south-central United States, spilling over into the Tennessee Valley as we head through the latter part of this week and into the weekend. And here's how all of that translates onto a map you're a bit more familiar with. Around 1 p.m. on Tuesday, that's tomorrow, we could be dealing with a stripe of snow from Michigan down into Pennsylvania. We're talking more lake effect, more lake-enhanced snow, but also some good old-fashioned general snow showers tied to this low-pressure system that'll be parked over St. Louis around that time. This system will also send a ribbon of rain from Ohio back down towards Memphis and Arkansas, and some isolated thunderstorms will certainly be possible. Some heavier rain will also be on the table for the Delmarva area as we push into the day on Tuesday, late Tuesday into early Wednesday. But again, I don't think that particular storm will be a showstopper. It's the next one in the lineup that has my full attention. See that low-pressure system spinning up in Texas? You can see all of that abundant moisture announcing its presence in the form of heavy rain right here, and once again, we will have isolated pockets where some strong storms are embedded in this activity as well. It's still too far out to nail down the specifics there, but the one thing we know for sure is that a ton of rain is going to fall in this area, and that could very well lead to some flooding. So that will be the headline as we go from Thursday into Friday. And then, even as we head into Saturday and Sunday, that lingering low-pressure system will be delivering some, let's call it, interesting weather to the Appalachian Mountains and the Mid-Atlantic. Washington, D.C. could be in for some significant rainfall during this time, but once again, while all of this is impactful to some degree, it's not the main ingredient in the forecast for the next 2 weeks across the United States, and we are going to talk about that main ingredient right after this. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor. All right, now let's get back to the forecast and talk about all of this rain. Over the next 4 or 5 days is poised to create something of a flooding threat, stretching from Austin, Texas, right up through the Dallas Metroplex. That risk even extends up toward Oklahoma City and into the southwestern portions of Missouri. This right here is the Day 4 excessive rainfall outlook, and folks, we've got ourselves a pretty significant chance for flooding in this corridor. And remember, this is just a snapshot of one day out of the next 5. You can see that over the coming 7 days, a very large area is going to get a thorough soaking. We're talking anywhere from 2 to 5 inches of rain on the table, from central Kentucky and middle Tennessee all the way back into the hill country of Texas. And the kicker is, many of these places will experience this downpour in a very short period of time, which is a classic recipe for some flooding. Otherwise, for many from Dallas up to Nashville, it's mostly welcome rainfall, but if you happen to live in a flood-prone area, consider this your heads up to be ready. We're going to keep you posted if things change and we start to see a more significant flooding threat emerge. We will, of course, have updates for you. It certainly looks like a dynamic situation could unfold, so stay tuned. Alright, let's shift our focus upstairs to the upper-level winds, the jet stream, if you will. And let's talk about what's coming down the pike. Okay, so we've got these two systems getting ready to make their pass, and those are the opening acts, fine and dandy. We have a pretty good idea of what they'll entail for the most part, but what's next on the docket is something truly interesting. So we're about to enter this very high amplitude pattern, where we're going to see some major dips and crests in the jet stream taking shape. And that's going to allow some significant storms to get their act together over here in the western United States, then carry that energy across the Rockies and into the central and eastern United States. Here's one possibility around the 25th of November, where it does look like there's a pretty robust severe weather chance on the warm side of the system. And once again, we're a little too far out to talk about the fine print. I don't want to be the guy who says, well, this looks like a hail or a tornado threat, because that forecast will change a million times before we get there. The one thing we do know is that the ingredients look to be in place: a low-pressure center and an enhanced jet streak. That spells potential for storms and unsettled weather from the 24th to the 26th from the Central Plains over into the Ohio Valley. And what happens after that? Well, as we approach Thanksgiving, things are about to get plumb wild. It looks like another big-time trough and ridge pattern begins to develop. We could even have a significant storm brewing on the East Coast around the 28th. But even that isn't the main event. There is a huge signal for a trough the size of the United States of America as we approach late November and roll into early December, and this is a pretty significant holiday period. This is quite the time for the weather to decide to get active again, and it does look like it's preparing a 1-2 punch. The first storm might just be a glancing blow to the East Coast, but this second one here could be impactful for everybody, from the West Coast with strong winds and heavy precipitation, from the Sierras up into the Rockies, then into the Central Plains where we would also have strong winds and potentially severe weather. And then even on the backside. I mean, this is the kind of system that could cause a significant snow event with the right conditions. So this is my next big thing that I'm watching. I'm going to be looking at every model run as it comes out. And if we continue to see this pattern hold, the big theme here on the channel is going to be trying to nail down your Thanksgiving forecast, because this is the kind of storm that could certainly be impactful to millions and millions of people during the busiest travel week of the entire year. So right here, all we're looking at are those winds at the 500 millibar level, about 18,000 feet up. That big trough could lead to some pretty significantly unsettled weather down here on the surface. Now, it will also lead to some pretty interesting developments with our temperatures. So, leading up to this big pattern change, we're going to be having some fun in the sun for the most part. Outside of the rain, of course, in the south-central United States, across the vast majority of America, we are going to be enjoying above-average temperatures, and once again, there will be a few places that could break some records. I'm looking at you, Southeast. As we go forward, there are going to be intermittent hits of average to below average temperatures. There's one around the 22nd, but for the most part, we're all riding high above average here. But notice what happens as we approach Thanksgiving. As we get into late November, things become a little more turbulent. We get a pretty prominent cold blast here with that first storm that's going to try to graze the East Coast. That's going to send some rather chilly weather into the Ohio Valley, followed by another little ridge. And trailing right behind that, it's loading the atmosphere for our next storm, where we have a very significant chance of an Arctic outbreak in the western United States. And what's the golden rule of meteorology? Whenever you've got such a dramatic temperature divide, there's always a storm brewing in the middle. We're talking negative 40 degrees below average, right next to 20 to 30 degrees above average. The only possible result from a clash like that is a major storm system, and that's precisely what we're tracking for late November into early December. And would you look at that, holy smokes, we've got big-time warmth right next door to that deep freeze. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the recipe for a blockbuster storm. Now, let me be clear, it's far too early to nail down the specifics. I can't tell you if Minneapolis is looking at a foot of snow, nor can I say if we'll have a tornado outbreak on the warm side of this system. But those are exactly the kinds of high-impact scenarios possible with a storm of this magnitude. And because that possibility exists, you're about to see it plastered all over YouTube and TikTok. The headlines will scream, "A major storm is coming for Thanksgiving." And while there may be a kernel of truth to that, don't buy into the hype just yet. If anyone tries to tell you exactly how much snow you'll get or the precise impacts from this storm this far out, they're selling you a bill of goods. I'm sorry, but there's no magical weather wizard out there. We are all working with the very same data. And all we know for certain right now is that the pattern is about to get very active as we approach Thanksgiving. Currently, the GFS model is painting a pretty decent snowstorm for the upper Midwest, the northern plains, and a rather potent severe weather situation as well for the south-central United States, stretching into the mid-Mississippi River Valley. And then, for the grand finale, a sweeping cold front moves through. Now, this forecast will certainly evolve. So once again, stay tuned right here if you want the no-hype details. I will have plenty for you as more information rolls in. The main takeaway is the pattern we're heading towards: above average temperatures in the east and below average temperatures in the west. And everywhere in between, well, that's going to be prime real estate for spinning low-pressure systems and a whole lot of unsettled weather. So get ready. Otherwise, enjoy the warmth in the southeast. It's going to feel fantastic on the dry days in Nashville, all the way down to Miami and up towards Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, it's going to be a bit on the chilly side out west. And now, let's zoom in on our more near-term threat, with those storms expected to roll through the Ohio Valley today, tomorrow, and into Wednesday. The northern flank of this system will bring mostly snow, but the latest high-resolution models are actually indicating some rather robust thunderstorms rumbling through the Ohio Valley area and into Kentucky. Folks from St. Louis all the way over to Charleston, West Virginia should be prepared for some heavy rain and a few isolated thunderstorms over the next 36 hours, extending into the next 72 hours or so. So be ready for that, and otherwise, let's all buckle up for a big, busy Thanksgiving week. It's time to start focusing on that holiday forecast. If this potential storm fizzles out on the models, honestly, the weather map gets a whole lot quieter, so that's the next big story we'll be nailing down. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye!